I am so late into reviewing this film, but Wandering Earth, 流浪地球, I finally got to see it. Hi, you're watching Avenue X, where a junkie and good storytelling shares their thoughts, knowledge, and occasional weird ideas on stories and how they're told. Wandering Earth, 流浪地球, is China's real first sci-fi movie. When I say real, I mean like there have been films before, but not anything seriously in terms of actually doing a proper mainstream entertainment blockbuster kind of sci-fi movie. And considering it's already 2019, it's really late into the game. Because I think this type of entertainment film, as opposed to others such as drama, that kind of film, heavily relies on technologies, relies on CGIs, relies on a lot of computing power that China has, but China always does that for other films. We are the outsourced factory of rendering stuff for Hollywood films, not creating our own, for many reasons. So Wandering Earth, when it came out in February this year, was landmark, the first of its kind, and therefore it had garnered so much attention domestically in China. This film was released during the Chinese Spring Festival early February this year. Most likely the highest grossing of any domestic film that's gonna happen in a year happens during this slot when everybody in China is on holiday and people have money and time, and the festivity atmosphere usually push people who don't really go to cinemas into cinema. The film came out online on official streaming sites about a week ago or so I finally got the time and chance to see this film. Before I go into talk about my opinions about the film, some statistics that are really interesting. This is the second highest grossing film in China's cinema history. The first one is Zhanlang. This one grossed just shy of $500 million RMB, which is about 650 million US dollars. So that's still a lot of money. Incidentally, the first highest grossing, the top one, is also led by Wu Jing, the lead actor, who is also one of the lead actor, or the lead actor, depends on how you define that, in Wandering Earth. So him, one person, had basically led two of the highest grossing films ever in Chinese cinema history, totaling over 10 billion box office. I mean, he must be like some kind of, I don't know, if you look at his like astrology chart, you're gonna read like this person has the strongest ability of just attracting money to him, whatever he's attached to. Like he must be like investor's golden boy or something. It's just pretty crazy when you think about that. I don't think anyone is gonna top that record anytime soon. This film is based on Liu Cixin's short story. Liu Cixin is the most famous sci-fi novel writer in China right now, and also globally because of his Hugo Award based on the Three Body Problem series books. I've made a video previously about that, so if you're interested, you can check out that video. This film is based on Liu Cixin's short story, Wandering Earth. The original material is not a very long story, and they did a lot of changes in the film as opposed to the story, so it's actually very different. But the premise is the same, which is in about 100 years, a few hundred years or so, scientists discover that sun is going to die. When a star dies, it expands and eats up, destroys the planets close to it. So Earth is coming to an end. Humans have to figure out a way of basically how to, survive. And in the film and in the short story, eventually humans decided, among many plans, to actually move the entire planet away. So basically turning the Earth into a giant spaceship and then shoot it towards something, I think in Alpha Centauri, like a closest star that we can migrate to, which is about 4.2 light years away. And with all the calculations or something, the whole thing is gonna take about 2,500 years to complete. So hundreds of generations of humans need to live as wanderer in the space. This is a pretty big, crazy ideas, because if most of the time when you see sci-fi about end of the world scenario and people need to migrate, it's usually getting on a spaceship and abandon Earth. But this version is like, we're not gonna abandon Earth, we're gonna carry Earth with us. So just that is like a really unusual way of looking at the stuff. In the story, in the novel, it actually explains why, instead of doing spaceship, they decided to move the whole planet. Because of the very long 1,000 years of migration process, you cannot build a spaceship big enough to have a ecosystem that's fully kind of functional for that much time and not collapsing. Obviously, that's just like all hypothetical talk. This film is directed by Guo Fan and led by Wu Jing, Xu Shuxiao, and many other people. It's mostly like an ensemble cast. Instead of saying just one person extremely important to the whole story, although we'd say Wu Jing is very important, but he's not just important because he's the lead actor, he's actually important as an investor. Because believe it or not, this film gone through some incredibly difficult development stage. It took them over 5-6 years to actually make this thing, and during which multiple times they ran out of money and it seems the project is like dead. Somewhere in the process, when they were like about to give up, Wu Jing came in as a friend and decided to put his own money. So he invested over like what, 50-60 million Chinese RMB to help the production at the time where it's about to just stop. And basically he was also dragged into as one of the lead roles, and I think he doesn't really take any money from acting. He's like there to help out, and he also invested in, but considering the return, which is like how many times, top of my head trying to do the math, that's like 100 times. So basically his investment got 100-time return. And he's probably the most successful investors in 2019 in China. This film in many ways serves as a milestone for Chinese cinema. Therefore, I think it gets so much attention and it achieved this much box office for multiple reasons. First, it has a really successful sort of pre-screening kind of promotion. It released a really high quality trailer that piqued people's interest. Also, it happens to be Chinese Spring Festival, and also because a lot of people are really excited about the fact that China finally managed to do its own pure sort of from script to everything by itself, a fully well rendered out, pretty intense end of the world scenario sci-fi, hard sci-fi movie. Because of all these reasons combined, this film becomes just like a landmark thing. It's so successful in box office. It's called the sort of opening the era, the year one of Chinese sci-fi movies. Now, obviously, there's a lot of hype that comes with it, and I don't think it actually represents, from now on, China is gonna be like, big player in creating those high budget, crazy CGI heavy entertainment movies. We're not at that place at all, but you can't hide the fact that people are excited because this actually happened and it actually worked, and it's actually pretty not bad, because what Chinese cinema is so used to completely shit films during Spring Festival that are just in for the money. They're just completely garbage. Okay, this one is actually not garbage, and it's a sci-fi not garbage, so it's like even more not garbage. That's weird. Anyway, I've talked about all the background information about this film. In terms of the movie itself, the film itself, whichever word you want to use, if we completely take out considerations of all the things I've talked about before, just purely looking at it as visual storytelling, I would naturally not say it's a very good, well-made film. I don't really score my sort of reviews, but if I have to ABC and fail, if I have those 4 categories, I would put it somewhere like lower B. Because if you just look at the storytelling, it's really not that well written. It has many problems, structural problems. I was trying to find out the perfect word describing what I feel when I watch this film. And yesterday I happened to be watching a YouTube video, Oscar video, about interviewing Endgame's sort of writers and directors and Kevin Feige and And they were saying they spent that many years building up. They want audience to have that emotional journey with their characters. Therefore, in the end, when all those big moments happen, they're not just simple clip shows. They're actually emotionally punching, and it has that weight. And that was like perfect word. Clip show. Because this is the end of the world scenario when everything goes wrong, when shit happens after shit, and you think it's gonna be completely hopeless, then something happens and solve all the things and then save the day. That type of structure. It has many sort of mandatory points that has to go through, like, you know, this has to happen, leading to that to happen, leading to that to happen, eventually leading to the end. And while you're watching it, you feel you're being chased through. It's like somebody is like talking outside of the frame and telling them, now you need to hit that point, then we can lead to that point. So you feel like they're acting all those sort of pivotal moments as individual moments. But as how you arrive, like how you link those moments together, how it organically progresses from one moment to the other, not just plot-wise, but character-wise, emotionally, sort of attachment from the audience perspective-wise. You don't get that. You don't get that very comfortable, very sort of well designed way, pacing, anything to lead you through that process, not just entertaining, but also make you start to grow attachment to your characters and understanding sort of what kind of situation they're in and why they do the things they do and why they react in certain ways. It's more like you have so many set pieces you need to do. They're acting a lot of those moments instead of acting that through line. I think I've read somewhere that this film's original cut is actually half an hour to 40 minutes longer than the version you see, which is only about slightly like longer than 2 hours. And I still haven't seen it. I don't think it's available anywhere. I feel really sad about the fact, because I think had it been allowed to be longer, I might actually understood more about why the characters are the way they are. I might actually have a stronger emotional response to them, and it might make more sense. But the version that I see now, you do feel those characters are very two-dimensional. They're written for their functional purpose instead of trying to be a really fully rounded character that can stand on their own if it's not, you know, like for this scenario. It has a lot of very, very stereotypical characterization. You have the sort of anti young man who just has daddy issues, as Chu Xiao's character, daddy issue young man, and then you have the dad who feels just guilty about abandoning his own private life and family for his actual job to be the astronaut in a space station for the whole humanity. You have the young girl who is just like the troublemaker, who doesn't really understand anything and who kind of acts as the person who in a way asks questions for the audiences, so you can easily put exposition in the film. You have the geek. Like, there's so many very, very functional characters, stereotypically written for their very stereotypical purposes, and they don't do anything outside of that expectation. So this doesn't create strong character arcs. It doesn't give you very three-dimensional characters, and it's very hard to actually feel emotional attachment to them. I don't know if that will be actually much lessened if it's a longer film. I remember when I first watched Kingdom of Heaven, led by Orlando Bloom, Eva Green, and I think it's a Ridley Scott film, many years ago. I was like, what the? It's so cheesy. And then I watched the director's cut. I was like, these two are completely different films. The version that's theatrical release cut like more than 40 minutes off, and resulting in things just looking completely not right for all the characters. When I saw the director's cut, I actually loved the film. But when I watched the theatrical version, I was like, what the heck is this? Because of that experience, I understand what half an hour or 40 minutes can do for a film. It can literally change the picture. I wish there would be a longer version release that may actually make this better. But I have the inkling that even if that's the case, it's not gonna push a B film in my sort of category to a A. It probably just lifted it up to the top B instead of like lower B or even like borderlining C. But I think a lot of Chinese people respond to this film so strongly and actually much more positively, like being very lenient towards it than what you'd usually expect, is because nobody really see it coming and people didn't even like compute that as Chinese domestic film, a sci-fi film can actually get to this level of detail. Concept design was very beautifully, detailedly, and massive numberly done, and by the time they actually turn it into a fully rendered piece, it's actually really authentic to their initial vision. There's a lot of detail added to it. The CGI of this film is up to the sort of top standard of what you have right now in the world, which just China hasn't done before for sci-fi genre, which surprised people. People were like, oh, the CGI actually looks pretty good. We didn't expect that. Like, people are so used to Hollywood doing that, not Chinese domestic films. I think because of all those reasons, people tend to just give it a pass. To the actual storytelling, that is, I think, still the weak point of a lot of Chinese, not just film, but also TV dramas, as we've talked about these days. Good scripts are just so hard to come by. Not that they're not there, it's just very rare. So as a visual dramatic storytelling piece, it's not the best out there and not even close, but because of all the other things it achieved, it definitely deserves a place in China's cinema history. At the end, I want to also just quickly mention there's a lot of scientific mistakes it makes in this film if you want to look at it from a hard sci-fi point of view, such as creating all those over 10,000 Earth engines to push Earth off its orbit and towards the new direction. The fact is, the number that they give you is not even enough to even budge planet Earth, so that doesn't work. The part about Roche limit, which is the big plot point where Earth gets too close to Jupiter because they want to use Jupiter's gravity to accelerate Earth and then change its orbit so it's kind of aiming at the right direction. That doesn't work because Jupiter is a big gas giant. It's so big. The Earth actually has to be within the Jupiter to approach close enough in terms of the Roche limit to pull the solid mass of Earth into pieces. So that calculation is wrong. So it would never happen as described in the film. And then there are multiple other things that just wouldn't really work. But there have already been a lot of physicists online pulling all the things apart. I think for the dramatic storytelling's purpose, they did this. I wish it could be different, but I can see where it comes from. Like if they don't do it the way they do it in the film, then the whole story would not work. There's no get around of that. Like when you want to use Jupiter. I mean, Jupiter is actually really cool. In astrology, is a really good guy. It's very sad that in this film it's like the bad guy. But the render of Jupiter as Earth gets really close to it, all the clouds, all the ice, all the storms in Jupiter, is really beautifully done in this film. Visually, very stunning. So that's the end of my my review of Wandering Earth, 流浪地球. I wish in the future China can do more good sci-fi films, but I understand it's a very difficult thing to do. We're unlikely to see anything again anytime soon at this level. Also, if you happen to be wondering what happened to Three Body Problem films, you're not gonna see it anytime soon. They actually did this film. The whole thing is a joke. The film was actually, the copyright was sold to very cheaply many years ago to this person, and who goes out to make this film, who has no idea about how to make high budget, heavily green screen film. And it's shot, and all those materials are impossible to be used in post-production. And it's so badly done that I think the rough cut got to a really high level Chinese government official. People have rumored who he is, but you can never be sure. And that person is really important. And that person is a huge fan of the novel. And that person saw the rough cut and just killed it. It was like, that is shit. That thing is not gonna get anywhere. Therefore, it's dead in the water. Nobody knows if Three Body Problem is ever going to be made into a film. I don't think it's anywhere close that, even globally speaking, even the Hollywood, the best sci-fi films people are even close to visualize those concepts of creating something on a lower dimension and fold it up into a higher dimension and shoot it towards Earth to monitor everything happening on Earth. Like, just think about that. How does that work? Like, how do you visually show dimensional folding? Not to mention it would involve just a crazy number of international cast, because every nation, the entire Earth needs to be included, including aliens and whatever. Not gonna see it anytime soon. Maybe just read the book. Thank you for watching Avenue X. I'll see you in my next video. Meanwhile, live long and happy. Drama, film, story, watching, reading, whatever.